Hey guys, I just wrote a new track and really thought it was pretty cool and I'd do some interesting things that I'd never done before. And so I thought this would be a cool time to do a video and show you kind of how I came up with this. So the first thing is the Deluge. So this is always the brain of my operation. It's just easiest. It controls everything else via either MIDI or gate. So right now I have MIDI out running into my new toy here, the Microcosm, which is an unbelievable pedal. I'll probably do a video on this, but there's so many videos out there. You can get all the information you need just by, looking on YouTube, and there's some great creators who've started making some really amazing stuff with this. So MIDI going into the Microcosm, and I have the gate out for triggering start running to the DFAM up here, and then the DFAM is triggering the Subharmonicon, which is in turn triggering the Mother 32. I use the Arturia keystep 37 to trigger the Minitaur for some bass, but I actually recorded that into the Deluge. I actually ran it through the Microcosm as well, and then into my interface back into the Deluge. Sounds complicated. It kind of was. I'm not going to lie. I'm not the best at signal flow. It's always interested me, but is not something that comes naturally. I have to actually think about it pretty intensely. So I'll start with just walking you through my Deluge tracks, and then we'll move over to the Moog Sound Studio. So the first track I'll start off with is just a simple static track, actually, and this is what started everything. I just wanted to see if I could make some kind of sound that sounded like crackling. The next track that I have in here is even more simpler drum sound. Now, a lot of the time when I use the DFAM, I use it not as drums, but as supplemental kind of rhythmic, almost percussion. But in this case, I wanted to kind of use it more as drums. So this was really supplementary. I added some delay here. I love the Deluge very much, but this is one thing that I think they could do better at. You literally cannot turn up the delay any farther than halfway. Any farther than halfway, it becomes a complete mess and just absolutely unusable and too much feedback. So maybe we could change the algorithm a little bit on the delay, just saying, so we can have a full range for those that might want that. Anyway, I've got some reverb on this as well, and all I've got going on other than that kick is this little sound up here. Now, the cool thing about the Deluge is that I can adjust the effects per clip here. So if I wanted no delay on this, I could tap that, the audition pad, turn the delay all the way down, and I don't have delay on that, but I have it on this clip still. So that's a really cool thing. I'll go ahead and undo that. All right, moving on. This track is an arpeggio. So as you can hear, I have a couple of notes that are longer, so you can hear a little bit of the arpeggio. But then I also have some single notes, so it doesn't do an arpeggio at all. It's just a simple pluck. And then I added a bass line, and this bass line, like I mentioned before, is played through the Minitaur from the Arturia keystep 37. I went through the Microcosm, recorded all of that into the Deluge itself. I've addressed this on other videos. I like to do that a lot. I don't know, I just always like to have bass controllable here, so I'm not playing it. And also, if I take the Deluge somewhere else, I like to have the sounds with me. Now, I don't always do that with my Moog Sound Studio because it's 3 instruments rather than 1. It's really easy to record one in, but to do all 4, I'm lazy. I don't know what to tell you. So this is what the bass sounds like. Really amazing, cool textures from the Microcosm there. I absolutely love this pedal so much. It's going to get a lot of use in my studio. The purple tracks here are basically a B section. So I like to set up all of my tracks here in different colors, but in descending order. So I usually, in performance mode, will start with the top clips and then move down. So this blue section is the A section, and then the purple section is the B section there. We'll get to these down here, but these are supplemental. It could be played with either A section or B section. So this is a duplicate of the arpeggio up here, but playing a different progression. And you guessed it, below that is another bass progression that is going along with this B section. One cool thing, if you want to, you can change the color of the track. A lot of times I like to keep my bass purple, and I hadn't done that yet, so I'll just do that now. You just hold down Shift and turn the up-down knob, and it changes the color of the track. So I make that purple, and I'll go ahead and make this track purple as well. There we go. I like my synth tracks to be this pink there, so I'll just leave that as that. But this is the bass B section. And with both of these bass lines, I add a little bit of internal delay from the Deluge and a little bit of reverb as well. Quite a bit, actually. I just really love the way that the Minitaur sounds with delay and reverb on it. It's really amazing. These last two tracks are my favorite. So I got the Microcosm and I started running everything through it. And obviously it's a pedal, so the first thing I do is I pick up my guitar and I plug it into this thing. And absolutely loved everything I came up with. Right now I have it on this haze setting. Everything is really beautiful, and you never really know what you're going to get. And I know that some people really like a pedal that they know that when they play, it's going to do X or Y. If that's what you want, this pedal is not necessarily for you. I think that each of these presets does something that you can kind of get used to, but when you pair it with the repeats and the activity, it's very hard to duplicate anything that resembles something that you might expect. I love that. Not everybody does, so this pedal is definitely for me. These last two tracks are guitar tracks. No reverb, but just a little bit of internal delay, and you'll see why. I created a loop here, and I could hear too much of the loop, so I added some delay to carry over as the loop returns. And as you can hear, adding a little bit of that delay helps the loop not feel so much like a loop. But one of the cool things that I did on that one was use the reverse setting on the phrase looper. And I can use this clip on either the A or the B section. And in fact, in that performance I did at the beginning, you can see that actually happen, where I turn this on for the B section, and then I leave it on as it goes back to the A section. And then lastly, I have this guitar track here. Again, went through the Microcosm on a whole nother preset and recorded it straight into the Deluge. Now you can really hear that that is a loop. So I added quite a bit of delay and quite a bit of reverb to help mitigate that a little bit. You're still going to hear it's a loop. I don't mind that. It's fine. You cannot really hear it in the track, so it didn't bother me at all. I loved the sound and that performance, so I just decided to keep it. And that's one thing also that I'm trying to do better at, of not trying to make everything so perfect, especially things that I'm playing analogly, if that's a word. If I'm doing something on my synthesizer, I really want a specific sound, I'll dial that in. But really, if I like a performance on my guitar or on piano or a vocal performance, I try to get out of my own way and see what I just did as beautiful and let the part convince me otherwise. So those are all my Deluge tracks. Now let's jump over here to the Moog Sound Station. I love this thing, and I really like to use it to augment what I do on my Deluge when I can. I don't always force myself to use it just because I have it here. It's beautiful. I love the knobs. I love the semi-modular setup. But if I don't need it, I don't use it. In this case, I wanted to hear a kick. I wanted to hear a snare, and to use the Deluge to augment that. With the DFAM, if you want it to start on 1, you have to start the sequence on 8 so that the next thing that you hear is 1. So in my case, I wanted to start on 5, so I have it starting on 4. So the VCO1 is the high-pitched sound, the noise is the snare sound, and VCO2 is the kick. There's not really much simple about the DFAM. It is kind of confusing and hard to really get. You got to spend a lot of time with it, but once you get it, it is an amazing tool that's so much fun to play. It can be punishing at times, and it can be very subtle and small. Just depends on how you want to use it. As for patching, the typical pitch out into the VCF mod and the VCO into the noise level. That's a typical patch to get kick and bass sound. I'm triggering it with the gate out from the Deluge and sending that trigger out into the Subharmonicon's clock in and the Subharmonicon's clock out into the tempo of the Mother 32. I had this plugged in and on accident didn't plug it into anything else. And I grabbed it once I noticed that, and it did this crazy sound. What? I don't know. It's going into VCO2 CV, and when I touch it, it does this crazy sound only at certain times, not every single time. Love that. Love the whether it happens or not kind of feeling, and what is going to happen, not totally sure. Really, really cool. Moving down to the Subharmonicon, I didn't do any patching here except for running the velocity from the DFAM into the cutoff of the Subharmonicon. This did some really cool things that made the polyphonic aspect of the Subharmonicon even cooler. So if we start it, reset it from the beginning. And as you can hear, it does some different things. It doesn't sound like it actually starts on the 1. It sounds like it starts in the E of 1 E and a 2 E and a, and that's all to do with this velocity into the cutoff, because of where I have these velocity knobs dictates what the cutoff is doing for the Subharmonicon. Very cool. That was also just on a whim and turned out really cool. Now you hear a lot of delay. I'm actually running the Subharmonicon into the microcosm live. So when it's playing, it's going through the microcosm, and I'm recording that separately. So that's why you're hearing that delay. And then lastly, with the Mother 32, I didn't do any patching here. I have something going into the assign in, but that is just from the Arturia key step. That's not really doing anything to the sound itself. The one thing that I did do with the Mother 32 is this time I actually played it. And I like to do this a lot with the Mother 32 so I can be hands-on, where I'll play an actual sequence and then I'll turn notes on and off, and it gives it this much longer sequence feel, even though this is only an 8-step sequence that I have going. So fun, right? I have it set to square wave. I have the pulse width up pretty high at about noon, and a little bit of resonance, not much though, just enough to make it sound interesting. Quick attack with a pretty long decay. So that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for walking through this track. I really love doing these. It inspires me to make more content. If you guys like this, please like and subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Tell me in the comments what you liked, what you didn't, what you thought I could do better. I'm all ears in this regard. Until next time, take care of each other. Peace and love.